Hey guys, what's going on? Tonight we're going to be doing the commentary for Mutation Nation. It is another one of those quirky little SNK brawlers that we had back in the 90s and stuff, and it does a pretty good job of mixing Streets of Rage with a trauma film. I actually don't really care for brawlers too much. I think I had my stint with them back when I was growing up and stuff, and at the time I thought that they were just the most amazing thing, and as I grew older, I just kind of grew out of them, like I had a really hardcore phase with fighting games as well, and I kind of grew out of those as well. Like I still play some of them like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighters and stuff, but I never really kind of stuck with it. It's a once in a blue moon kind of treat for me, I would think. So I really enjoy a lot of the aspects of this game and stuff. It doesn't really do anything new or innovative. It's pretty much like every other arcade game from the 90s and stuff, but I appreciate the enemies and stuff. Like, it doesn't really take itself too seriously, much like a lot of SNK's games from the 90s and stuff. It's just one of those weird and wonderful little games that you could go and you could probably beat in about 45 minutes. It's easily one of those games that you could beat on like a shopping trip or something, and it was always fun to bring a friend along as well to play it with. But, yeah. So when I was going and filming this, I had received an email that it was kind of weird. It was like a little bit on the nose, I think. Like, I was going and, I produce like a lot of these videos on a semi-regular basis. Like, I don't do it all the time, but I go through these periods where I just go and I pump out a lot of videos in like a short amount of time, and then I go and I rest, and then, rinse, dry, repeat and stuff. And so a lot of the work that I do here on YouTube is largely seasonal. And so I had received an email that had stated, well, if you can't keep a consistent schedule, there's no real point to monetizing. And so I thought it was kind of weird. And I wanted to actually take this video to address that and stuff, because it was something I thought about a lot while I was going and filming Mutation Nation. And so, for me, I don't really think about monetization that much at all. I know that I probably should, but I just never really felt a need to. A lot of the time when I go and make these films, I'm not really thinking of how many views it gets, or, I'm not really thinking of, ways that it could make money. Like, I don't really think about any of that, I don't think. Like when I go and I film these, it's because I want to go and I just want to share a cool experience with people, I think. Like the more I thought about it, it's like, okay, well, why are we doing these videos? I mean, there was like a lot of reasons, I think, why I do these videos and stuff. One of them is I want to share the experience with people. I want to be like, hey, I had a good time doing this, and I want to show you guys what it was like and, all that other stuff. And then another reasoning behind it, and this is probably the largest one, is I wanted to show other disabled folks that you can actually go and play and beat these games and actually have a good amount of fun doing it. I think that was probably the biggest reason why I go and I do these videos and stuff. I mean, it's not for the views, it's not really for the comments. I mean, the comments are nice, but they're not everything. It's because I want to sit down and I want to show people, hey, I can do this. And you can do this as well. Like, I see a lot of people go and lose their vision. They kind of have to, like, give up their hobbies, right? Like, I think society in general has a tendency to just literally go and be like, oh, okay, well, you're having visual difficulties, your life is more or less over at that point. And I just never really cared for that too much. Like, I kind of hated that mentality in general. Like, I'm definitely somewhat of a believer in the phrase, if we can, we do. So when I go and I do these games, I'm fully aware that there is a large scale of difficulty with it. And that's fine. I enjoy hard games. I enjoy challenge. I enjoy challenge in almost every facet of my life. It's not just gaming that, really kind of, I enjoy getting the challenge out of. I enjoy overcoming obstacles. I just enjoy going and advancing, more or less. Like I kind of view problems and limitations as things to be conquered. So when I sat down and I started working on a blind gamer long plays, I was like, I really hope someday somebody comes in, they see this awful ass gameplay, and they kind of say to themselves, okay, well, I can do this too if I go and, I put in time and effort and maybe a couple of aids here and there. And so that was the entire thing, I think. And so I think it's kind of silly sometimes how people will go and they're like, you're not going to make money off of it. And the weird thing is I don't really, as weird as it sounds, I don't really think about cash too often. I know that I probably should, because there's like a lot of people out there that kind of have a tendency to say, hey, if you're going to put in the work, at least get paid for doing so. But I never really believed in it too much. Like, I think there's kind of like a delusional mindset that kind of comes with YouTubing as well as streaming in general. Any sort of video production, any sort of streaming in general. A lot of people seem to have this weird entitlement where, at least from what I've seen, I don't really see it with people that are like just starting off, or I don't really so much see it with people that are established, but they have this mentality of, oh, I worked 15 hours on this video, it has to be good. People have to love it. They have to leave comments, they have to leave likes, and I just never really believed in that. I never really cared for it too much, Like, I would just kind of sit here and I would work passively on my videos, and I'm fully aware that they're not the highest quality. I'm fully aware that it's not the best gameplay, and yet I continuously work on them because I enjoy what I do. It may not be the best, but it's very fulfilling for me. And so that's something that I think about quite often when people bring up the whole, you're never going to be able to monetize, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, if you don't keep a consistent schedule, if your videos are not constantly, super high quality and like all this other stuff. And I think people really just kind of forget the entire reason why I go and I work on these films. For me, success is not really gauged by whether or not I can monetize. It's not really gauged by how many people view it, although that is nice to know that people view it and enjoy it and stuff. It's gauged by how many people I can motivate with it. So, suppose I release this video, right? I release it, and it maybe gets 800 views. Alright, whatever. I know it's not going to happen, but whatever. Those 800 views don't really mean much to me. What means a lot to me is when I get the occasional comment, because I have had these before, and they make me like super happy, make my heart super full, When people sit there and say, hey, I can't really see that well. I've started trying to do this myself. I'm not giving up. And it's panning out really well. I'm enjoying, my hobby again, more or less. And so that makes me really happy because in many ways I kind of feel like that people are going and taking back their lives, more or less. I feel like they're taking back their lives a little bit because they're frequently told you can't, you can't, you can't. So when they go off and they do, it's very liberating for them, right? Because they can go and they can get back a piece of what they lost, and it's a step towards normalcy for them. It's also conquering a challenge, and when you go and you conquer challenges, your brain's like really, really happy because your brain releases chemicals when you overcome things, and those chemicals make you happy. So I like to show people, hey, you can do this, I'm sucking butt at it. If I can suck butt at it, maybe you can do it better than me, put me to shame. It doesn't really bother me that much. I'm not really out here to look good or monetize or anything like that. I'm out here to show people that they can. And that's where the most important aspect of it is for me. To show people, hey, if you can, you do, more or less. And so that's really, I think, what's super important for me and stuff. I focus on some aspects of the videos, I think, but I don't really ever think about, how well, are they going to do. I don't really think about clickbaity titles, and I don't really make splash screens either for like any of these videos that try to reel people in. I kind of have this mentality of whatever happens, happens. Whoever likes it, likes it. If they love it, that's great, but I don't intentionally go out of my way to be like, hey, let's go ahead and try to attract people with it. Whoever shows up, essentially. That's just kind of how that is. If they love my stuff, great, happy for them. If they don't, that's okay too. I just kind of, it's something that I think about every now and then, and, the funny thing is I only really think about it when I get emails mentioning it. Most of the time when I go through and I do these videos, I kind of whistle while I do it, if that makes sense. Like, I don't get in front of my editor and say, oh, Jesus Christ, oh, I gotta make this so good, oh, it's gotta be perfect. What I do is I shoot the footage, I load it into the editor, I try to shoot my footage all in a single take. There's only one video that's ever been cut, and that was to circumvent a bug. I didn't want to waste the footage, all the work I had done. But the rest of these are literally just shot in a single take from start to finish. Normally they have the ends nipped, but largely the footage is intact. So I go and I load it into the editor and stuff, and I figure out what I want to do, what I don't want to do, and for the most part the editing is very minimal with a lot of these videos. And so that kind of makes me happy. And then when I go to do the commentary, a lot of the time, I don't really think about it too much. Like, a lot of people just kind of sit there and, they have these pages and pages of scripts and, they go and it's really well thought out and really well planned, and it's cool that they do that, but, I prefer to just wing it. I like to just say whatever the hell's on my mind, and if people agree with it, that's fine, and if they don't, that's fine too. It doesn't really bother me. So that's literally how a lot of my video production, more or less, happens, I don't really have, like, a whole hell of a lot of deep thought processes going on. I'm not worried about views or likes or monetization or anything like that. I just kind of focus on making something that I myself enjoys. That's pretty much how that is for me. I try to focus on games that I think I'll like and stuff, especially if I go and get like a random box of retro games, bring them home and port them and stuff like I did with these SNK carts. And, the only thing that I really try to focus on, I think, is the enjoyment. And I think that, like, when you go through and you're making content and you're making stuff that you enjoy, other people's enjoyment has a tendency to follow, But I think that when you go and you make content, you're miserable while doing it. It's very easy for the crowd to realize that you are miserable, and as an end result, they don't really have a lot of fun with it. And so there's like a couple of standing rules when I go and I do these vids, and, one, I have to have fun with it. Like, I don't have fun, like, huge amounts of fun with every single game I play. Some of them, like, I'll start having fun and I'll get kind of bored with it. And then I'll just kind of sit there and be like, well, I'm already filming it, I might as well finish it. And then other games like Mutation Nation, I had a lot of fun with it and stuff. Like, I typically don't enjoy a lot of side-scrolling brawlers and stuff, but with Mutation Nation, it was quirky enough to where I just kind of sat down and said, this is actually fun enough to where I can just literally go and keep going and stuff. Now, am I playing it relentlessly in the background? No, of course not. But I did enjoy it enough to literally go and be like, oh, okay, this is fun enough to where I actually want to film it and share the experience with other people. So I think that, like, when it comes to monetization and stuff, as I was saying earlier, I kind of feel like there's a mass delusion with it. And I see it a lot these days. Like, it used to be when YouTube first came out. Not everybody could literally go and do YouTube content. Not everybody wanted to go and do YouTube content, but as popularity has risen for the platform, I see more and more people literally go, hey, I want to go and I want to make YouTube videos because I think that they would be super fun and I can make a lot of money doing it. Like, a lot of people focus, I think, too much on the money aspect of things. Like, a lot of them have like this really high hope where they're going to go and they're going to make a couple of videos and they're going to get hundreds of thousands of likes, and then, here comes the money, and they get to go and play games up until they die, and, what have you, essentially, but I think that going and monetizing on YouTube, one, is damn near impossible these days. I mean that, like, a lot of people say, oh no, it's not impossible. It's getting closer and closer to it because the list of stuff that you can't do because of what they're trying to do with the platform is so extensive that it pretty much neuters out anything that you really want to focus on, like, For example, I know that I would not be able to get away with running ads on my videos because, one, a lot of the games I play are super gory, and then the other thing is that I have a tendency to swear a lot during my videos. So, that tea is good. But, YouTube has like a track record of literally just looking for random reasons on why they shouldn't pay you, more or less. A lot of my favorite creators literally don't even make content anymore because even though their content is quite original and harmless, they just kind of look for reasons on, oh, this video was taken down because of this or that, or we can't run ads on your videos because, it's not family friendly, and good luck getting a human being, essentially. Like, even the larger creators can't even really get a human being these days. A lot of it's just automated. So I think a lot of people that go and have this idea of, we're going to go and we're going to monetize and, my life is going to be YouTube and stuff, I think they really fail to take into consideration just how much of a broken platform YouTube currently is. And so I feel that it's kind of like a mass delusion at this point, because everybody wants to make money off of YouTube, but people don't really understand exactly how fucked up YouTube is at the moment. And so I see a lot of people, they go and they'll produce like 2 or 3 videos and they'll get upset. They'll go and their video will be up for like 2, maybe 3 hours, and they'll be upset because, oh, I didn't get like a couple hundred views. Like, they'll have like 1 or 2 views, right? And they think that just because they have thrown a video up there that it's instantly going to get like a lot of traffic. And the sad thing is a lot of people that go and start doing YouTube, they don't really realize exactly how much they are at the mercy of the algorithm. Like, the algorithm is pretty much the end-all be-all, I think, when it comes to YouTube, because you can have high-quality content, and you can even have, like, pretty good people going and, like, advertising it and stuff, but if the algorithm does not latch onto it, your video is literally never going to see an audience. And unfortunately, that's a sad fact of life. I don't really care for it. That's just how that is. Other things that a lot of people, I think, really fail to realize when they go and they decide that they want to monetize on YouTube is just how badly copyright will fuck you in your ass. To give you an example of this, I use music in my videos sometimes, and even with permission from the artist, they still get copy striked. And a lot of the times, I think I talked about this in another video, a lot of the times it's literally just a random bullshit email claiming to be a company. And since YouTube is afraid of any sort of lawsuit, they instantly pull it. Like, they don't actually go through the process of seeing if this person is actually this company. They just go, oh, can't do it, and then they have it pulled. So when it comes to monetization and stuff, there is a lot of barriers. And a lot of people don't really realize this, and I just never really understood where the delusion comes from, essentially. Like, I really don't get it. When I started doing long plays and stuff, I think my best video is still the video for SNES Aladdin, made by Capcom. And, it's nice that it had that success and stuff, but when I would go and I would look at it, right? When I saw that it had, I think, breached 1,000 views, I was like, this is cool. I like this. And then I turned around and I was like, anyways, and I kind of moved on to the next project, Like, it's cool to get views and stuff, but it's not, for me at least, it's not generally a hallmark of success. Much like how going and monetization is not generally a hallmark of success either, because the gateway for monetization on YouTube and Twitch are not very strict. It's actually looser on Twitch than it is on YouTube. YouTube, you have to have X amount of hours. Like, it's a real short list of stuff that you have to go and fulfill before you can do it. And then with Twitch, it's literally X amount of hours streamed and then a little bit over 300 followers, and that's it. You can go and apply for affiliacy and get it, and then go and just start making money off of that. The bar's not as high as it used to be. So it's just been one of those things that I think about occasionally when people gripe that, if I don't do X amount of stuff with my content, I am never going to be able to monetize. I don't really care. You know, like I have very specific goals for this channel and stuff. You know, it's not straight up, let's make a ton of money and be famous and stuff. That's not what I want. It sure as hell is not what I need. So, for me, my win on this channel is when I get comments that are sitting there saying, hey, it's cool to see somebody in our community going and playing games and giving us visibility. That's awesome. It's also cool when somebody comments and says, you know, I'm playing my favorite games again, and it doesn't bother me that I'm bad at them anymore. I'm playing them, and I'm sharing them, and I'm having a good time. Amazing stuff. I love to hear it. But with everything else, it just doesn't really matter to me. You know, like those are really only the kind of goals that I think that I have for the channel. I don't really have any sort of end game. You know, like I don't have this master plan to go and just keep going for as long as I can. You know, I mean, I have intent to literally go and make these vids whenever I want. You know, just be like, oh, okay, I feel like making something right now, then going and doing it. You know, it's just like a really short list of things that I want to do, but none of it really revolves around money. It doesn't really revolve around ads. It doesn't revolve around appeasing the algorithm. You know, it's literally self-fulfillment for me at this point. You know, like every time this has a positive impact on somebody and it can give them a piece of their hobby back, that makes me smile. Every time somebody feels like they're being represented in a positive light, that also makes me smile. You know, like, money literally does not buy happiness. In this case, it buys better equipment, but it doesn't buy happiness. So, it's something that I think about whenever I get one of those emails and stuff, and I just never really, I guess, understood the mentality. Like, I never really understood why people had to latch onto things so hard, you know? Like, they just kind of... I don't know if it's just the need to feel important or the need to feel cherished, you know? But I never really understood why people feel this need to go and feel like they have to be famous and stuff and, you know, have all this stuff going on. I just never really got it. Maybe I'm missing something. I probably am missing something, but for me, I kind of make these vids because I like them. You know, I like sitting down and opening up an editor, and I like going and filming gameplay and stuff and being bad at it. Like, I like laughing and having a good time with it. I think the thing that I liked most about this line, especially with Mutation Nation, is I was tossing it back and forth between me and my godson, and we were having a good time with it, and he liked the bright colors, and he loved the enemy designs and how weird and quirky they are, and, you know, I think it's the overall experience, I think, that really does it for me. Because now, long after this is uploaded to YouTube, right, I can sit down and I still have that memory. So, you know, it's like you guys get the video, but I get the experience. And I get to cherish that experience. That speech impediment. And I get to cherish it and I get to hold on to it. And that's what really makes it for me, you know. And so I really just kind of, when I think about things like that, I smile a lot. And that's really where it's at for me. You know, these videos I feel are kind of like a two-way street. On one end, I wanted to have a positive impact on anybody that may be disabled and then goes and, you know, pushes past that limitation or challenges that limitation and then goes and resumes their hobby again. And then for me, it has a positive impact because I get to spend time with people I care about. I get to go and I get to have the experience, and then I get to film that experience, and then I get to give it to y'all so you guys can go and experience it as well. I'm somebody that likes to share a lot of stuff, you know. Videos, food, it doesn't matter. Not to me, at least. You know, that's where it's at for me, I think. You know, we were going and filming Mutation Nation, and it was kind of funny because during the rendering process, we were sitting there, we're listening to movies in the background, you know, and my nephew, he's kind of like addicted to trauma films, even though he's like kind of young to be watching them, with all the tits and the violence and stuff. I mean, yeah, it's like old school violence, but those titties are still very relevant in today's age. So we were going back and we were rendering this, because he's been learning how to do rendering on the side as well, you know, because he wants to make his own videos someday, which is great. So they're kind of like teaching lessons, like as I learn, he learns, and it's really, really nice. So as this was rendering, we were just kind of going and listening to trauma films in the background, you know, and I've always been a real huge fan of trauma films and stuff, and I know that they're bad and campy and everything else, but I still find myself enjoying them. Like, I really enjoy Lloyd Kaufman's work in general, and so it's always been really, really nice to go and watch a lot of these films, no matter how bad they may be. So we were going back and, you know, we were rendering this one, and then we were listening to a couple of films in the background, and he was going and talking about it and making comparisons to various other characters in the films, as well as the monsters in these games, and, you know, he just had like a really good time with it, I think, and that's really what it's about for me. You can't really put a price on that. And I think that's why monetization doesn't really mean much to me, because you can always go and get more money, right? But you can't really replace life experiences, at least like not good ones. You know, so whenever I have the opportunity to go and have like a positive life experience with them, whether it's like being bad at a game or like listening to a movie or learning how to render together, I always take it. You know, like I never shy away from it. And so for me, that's really where it's at. Oh man, I hated this boss so much. Oh, I mean, I know I'm bad, but I don't remember being this bad. I think one of the things I didn't really care about with Mutation Nation too much, and I think this is purely just me nitpicking, is I never really cared for how arcade games literally had a timer strapped to them and stuff. I never really liked that too much, and a lot of people, I guess, were okay with it, but I always felt like the timer was always kind of artificially pushing you through an area, you know? I mean, you could argue that, you know, you have to be better at the game to meet the time limit sometimes. Like, you just have to be like, oh, okay, well, I gotta get better at the game so I can have some time left over and all this other stuff, but I never really cared for it too much. I always just felt like it was trying to rush me through as fast as it could, and on one end it does keep the game on like the shorter end of things, which, you know, is kind of nice and stuff, especially when it's meant to be like a short excursion. But at the same time, I never really liked being rushed while gaming. I kind of always viewed gaming as a more intimate experience. And so it's like it doesn't really feel as intimate when you're sitting there going, "Oh, okay, I'm being rushed through X, Y, and Z and all this other stuff," and it just doesn't really feel super amazing, you know. But I definitely enjoyed these games back in the day and stuff. I think the one thing, going and doing these games and stuff, I think the one regret that I had doing all of the SNK titles is probably the platform I picked. Now, the Odin is amazing. I really like the Odin. I enjoy taking all my stuff on the go. It is very, very accessible and very, very capable in the right hands. But I think the thing that I kind of regretted the most is probably leftovers from the 90s, and that is, I really regret not being able to have a second player. Like, no matter how hard I tried, right, I could not get two-player running on the Odin. Like, I could have... Basically, what I was trying to do at the time is, the Odin has built-in controls. The gamepad is literally built straight into the device. And so what I was kind of hoping to do is, since it has Bluetooth support, I was hoping that I could have the main device and play on it because I have bigger hands. And my godson could have had something like a Bluetooth Nintendo Switch controller connected via Bluetooth to the Odin, and he could have been player 2. But no matter how hard I tried, I could never really get it running correctly. Like, it just did not want to work correctly at all, and there was always like a lot of bugs and glitches with it. And so I tried to bridge the gap, I think, for like a really long time. I kind of sat down and I was like, alright buddy, we're going to go ahead and get this running. I was like really excited, right? And so we just never really got it to where it needed to be, but, you know, my godson has like a lot of grace and stuff. And he's totally cool with passing the handheld back and forth. We still go and we hang out and toss the Odin, back and forth whenever, one of us dies and stuff, and we still have a good time. But, in the back of my mind, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, it's cool to share, right? But at the same time, I really wish I could have been like, this would have been a hell of a lot cooler if I would have just had player 2 on the screen and we were just whipping ass together. I would have loved that so much more, I think. And so while the memory is nice, it's definitely a golden experience, there is a part of me that kind of sits down and says, I really wish that I would have known more so I could have done it better so he could have had a better experience. And it kind of haunts me a little bit. Like, I don't expect my experiences to be like 100% all the time and stuff. I think as you get older, you kind of accept that a little bit, right? Like, you kind of sit down and you say to yourself, oh, okay, like, there's going to be some caveats with the experience, but I think when you're older, you just kind of learn to take your wins when you can get them, essentially. But I think, like, when you go and you're going and having fun with a child, you just kind of want them to have the baller experience all the time. And so when I tried to get the second player configuration running on these emulators and stuff, it was just really kind of a tough thing. And after a lot of research and stuff, they were like, yeah, the emulator runs it, but it turned out to be a Bluetooth issue with the Odin. I was completely ignorant of this at the time because I don't really use a lot of Bluetooth. Like, I have a Bluetooth speaker and stuff, and of course my controllers are Bluetooth. But when it came to the Odin, I never really saw a need to go and use the Bluetooth because of the fact that there was no need for it at all. I mean, the controller is already built into the handheld, and then it's got okay speakers on top of it. I mean, the speakers aren't anything to write home about. They're kind of on the lower end of things, but they get the job done, essentially. And so I pretty much had everything that I needed. So by the time I got around to actually going and using Bluetooth, I was like, oh, this is going to be a pain because the Odin has a problem syncing a Bluetooth controller while somebody is going and using the built-in gamepad. And then setting up the configuration for it was kind of nasty as well because it would confuse the gamepad with the Bluetooth controller a lot of the time. Like, there was just a lot of crap that just was not functioning well. And so a lot of the time, my nephew would go to bed and stuff. And I would kind of stay up late a little bit trying to get the second controller to work, and it just wasn't really happening. Like, there was plenty of nights where I just kind of sat here and I was like, how do we get this running? Like, I like to investigate and fix things and stuff and get things running, but with the Odin it just wasn't really happening, and it's mainly because it was a problem with the software that I literally had no capability to fix because of the firmware that the Odin runs. And so in many ways, for a lot of these games, even some of the later games that are going to be shown off with this line of commentaries and stuff, a lot of them would have been a lot better with a second player in the game, I think. They're not bad games. They're still incredibly fun to play. They're still an amazing time to be had, essentially, but you can definitely tell that a lot of these games are meant for two people in mind. And it would have been really nice to go and have more of a shared experience with both of us on the screen. I could die a ton of times while he's able to proficiently walk around the screen and punch the shit out of things, just all that stuff. So for me, it was definitely something that I had to think about a fair bit because I was like, I want him to have the best experience. And so I would have to ask myself past a certain point, with us going and sharing the Odin side by side, just tossing it from one hand to another, is he really having the best experience? Well, the best way to find out is to ask, as it turns out. And so about halfway through doing our runs of Mutation Nation, I asked him, I said, hey buddy, are you having a good time? And my godson is so damn gracious a lot of the time that he has a really huge filter on his mouth. Which is kind of weird because I don't really have a filter much at all. Like, I don't really give a shit if I offend people. I don't really give a shit if people don't like me swearing either. But with my nephew, like, he's very considerate towards people and he doesn't like to hurt their feelings and stuff. So, I'll ask him, you know, hey, are you having a good time? And he'd be like, yeah, I'm having a good time. And then I'll have to turn around and ask him again, are you really having a good time? Or are you just saying you're having a good time? And he'll be like, I'm having a good time. And, you know, so I like to make sure that he has like a top tier experience and stuff. You know, like I like to make sure that everybody at least has a good time with it as much as they can. And so for me, that's what the most important thing is. You know, like I don't mind looking bad while playing a game and stuff. Like I don't mind sitting down and being like, oh, okay, you know, this is what we're doing, X, Y, and Z. But when it comes to like going and having kids and stuff that are going and playing the game with you, you know, you want to make sure that they're having a good time because if they're not, it doesn't really feel worthwhile. In many ways, it's kind of like going and taking a kid to like an amusement park or, you know, like taking them to go and play mini golf or something like that. Like taking them out on an outing, you want them to just have the best experience that they can because they're there to enjoy themselves. And I kind of feel like when you're taking care of a kid, you know, that should be a priority for you a fair bit. And so a lot of that mentality, I think, kind of bled over into a lot of these SNK games we did because it was kind of like always a lingering thought in the back of my mind, and I would kind of worry about it a little bit at times. I would be like, hey, man, you know, you having a good time with it? And then, you know, a lot of the times he would just be like, yeah, and then other times I could definitely tell when he was having a good time because he wouldn't want to give the damn Odin up. You know, like he would be going and playing and he'd be getting so far into it and stuff that I'd be like, all right, dude, you died. It's time to toss it over. And he's like, can I get another continue? I'm like, all right, man, you can have another continue. Have at it. But I call next game, you know. So it was one of those humorous things, I think. I really enjoyed the time that we spent going and working on this line together a fair bit because he got to learn how to run emulators and he got to learn about RetroArch and cores and he got to learn a lot about hardware and there was just so much stuff that he got to learn about and he had like a really good time while doing it. Like he's a little fledging nerd and I love it. I love it a lot. Like he's fledging so much with it, you know, and he's just growing up so fast, man. I'm afraid to blink. I really am. You know, and so we sat down and we would go and we played these titles together and you know, it was like a lot of learning and a lot of bonding and it was just like really quality time. Like every time I pulled that handheld down from the shelf, I realized that we were going to have a really nice top tier bonding experience. So I'm really glad that he has like an appreciation for retro games now. You know, I'm glad that he likes learning about emulation and, you know, video production and basic rendering and like all this other fun stuff. And the last 3 months that we've gone and we have worked on this series, you know, in between rendering commentaries and playing the games and filming them and then rendering those and all the other things, you know, the entire time that we've actually sat down and worked on them and played these games together, it's always been a top tier experience. And it really makes my heart full, you know what I mean? You know, that's really, for me, that's really what it's meant to be. And how it should be, in all honesty. Ooh, that tea is so good. But, yeah, you know, like, there'd be times where he would rage and stuff. Some of the games that we would play, the enemies would juggle the dog shit out of him. And he would get frustrated with it. Like, he's got a little bit of, you know, that rage going on, a little bit of that gamer rage, and I would always kind of have to step in with it. And I think that it was kind of an important teaching tool, you know, because he's just a little guy, you know what I mean? And I would have to sit down and I'd have to ask him, I'd be like, all right, honey, you know, why are you angry at this? And it's kind of funny sometimes because he would just kind of look at me and, like, with the straightest face I think I've ever seen on a child, he would seriously sit there and say, because what that boss is doing is bullshit. And I laugh so hard at that, you know, because he knows he's not supposed to be swearing being that young and stuff, but sometimes his mouth has no filter, which when it doesn't have any filter on it, it's actually quite funny, you know. There's other times where we were going and playing Metal Slug and we'll be close to like defeating a boss, right? And the boss would go, and even though we would have free play turned on, if he was close to defeating a boss and he died, he'd be like, shit! And then he would, like, cover his mouth, and he would look at me, and I would look at him, and I'd kind of, like, wag my finger a little bit. And then, you know, he'd be like, I'm sorry. I'm like, hey, man, that's okay. And I'd have to just kind of lean down and whisper, I get pissed too. It's so funny, you know, and he's just like this little man that's like growing up so fast and stuff. And it's funny because he's quiet. He's like me. Like, outside of my immediate relationships and stuff, I'm actually very quiet. I don't really talk much. A lot of it has to do with social anxiety. A fair bit of it also has to do with having a speech impediment. You know, aphasia makes talking hard, as you can see when I stumble over my words. You know, but you know, he's a lot like me. You know, he's very, very quiet. He has a tendency to stay in his room a lot. You know, he just does not like other people because he sees how other people treat each other and he doesn't really care for it, which I get that. I am in the same fucking boat. Literally, I cannot stand most other people because they are skeezy fucks and I do not want to be around them. But during our time when we were going and working on these titles together, he really kind of came out of his shell, you know, and like we talked more and, you know, he told me what he likes and what he doesn't like and the games that he plays, and like it was like a whole new world, and I really loved that because that's not something that his parents ever get to see. You know, like his parents kind of whine about it a little bit, but it was great when we were sitting down playing these games because we would sit and we would talk and he would kind of let me into his world a fair bit. So it was really cool because the entire time we went and we did this entire project together, we sat down and we got to know each other really, really well, and we had a lot of fun with it. And so I really cherish that, I think. You know, I cherish the time that we had together, and I cherish the privilege that he gave me of being able to understand what the inside of his world is like, you know. I don't really think a lot of kids really show that to too many people anymore because, you know, a lot of kids have self-esteem issues and they're ridiculed for what they like or don't like or anything like that. So for him to sit there and say, hey, this is what I like, this is what I don't like, you know, this is what it's actually like in there, it kind of makes my heart swell a little bit because I kind of view it as when you go and you have a privilege like that, it feels like a really huge honor because people are relatively private these days in almost every facet of their lives. Oh man, this boss was beating the shit out of me. I do not miss this bastard at all. Okay, I miss him a little bit. I just like punching that face that is crotch level. Yeah, a lot of these older enemy designs, oh, Lord have mercy. And there we go, he be dead. Oh man, thank fuck that's over. So there is about 1:15 left in this video. I actually really enjoyed this commentary a lot. However, this is where this commentary comes to an end. For all those that showed up tonight, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you for all the time and the energy that you guys kind of spend out here, and, you know, thank you for all that you do and stuff. I greatly appreciate you guys. I have more commentaries in the pipeline. You know, we are almost done with them. You know, I've been kind of just going down the list alphabetically, banging this crap out. And so, pretty soon, the Summer of Arcade commentaries are going to be coming to an end. So I should have those videos wrapped up pretty soon. I'm going to release them all as a giant batch and stuff. So I want to thank everybody for coming out. And as always, be good to yourselves and each other. Till next time.